I'm sorry it took a little bit to get to this post. Things have been really hectic and I hadn't really had time to get around to it. But the other day I read a really important quote. I can't remember who done it or even where I read it. But it said that the world will ask you who you are, and if you cannot answer that, then it will tell you who you are. And I think this is so important when we're thinking about mental illness, physical sickness, physical health, all of those aspects, because when it comes to any type of medical diagnosis, many times we allow what others use as a definition for our illness to define who or what we are. And this is something we really need to refrain from. I spent years terrified because people had a preconceived notion of what bipolar disorder is. And as a result, I not only hid the problems I had, but I also had this idea in my mind of what it meant to have bipolar 1 disorder. And this is one of the things I think we all really need to pay attention to. We cannot allow any type of medical diagnosis to define us. It also is important that we don't allow our fear of what others think to persuade us not to talk about it or come out, because sometimes we may try to hide what's wrong, and as a result we tend to get worse or we cause more problems. For me, I was 26, 27 before I realized how badly the disorder had impacted me, and at that point I had numerous suicide attempts. Drugs and alcohol were my life, and all of a sudden I had to pull back and realize what I was doing to myself. And I had to learn how to talk about it. And that's one of the reasons I'm doing this now, because I think it's so important to help others understand it's okay to have something wrong. It's okay to talk about what's bothering you. It's okay to discuss with family, friends, doctors, any type of concerns you may have. For me, it's obvious because I had years of not sleeping, years of hallucinations, and a bunch of other issues that people cannot imagine. And my fear of what others thought did not allow me to step outside of my comfort zone and admit what was wrong. And had I not been so uncomfortable or so terrified of what others thought or what the actual definition of bipolar was, then maybe I could have gotten help sooner. And I could have avoided a whole lot of stress and heartache and pain. So when I read that quote, I couldn't help but think it's something we all need to keep in mind. Because in truth, if we allow the world to tell us, hey, I think that I have this disorder, but the world tells us this disorder means that we're less of a person or unable to do certain things, then we allow that to kind of stick. We don't try to attempt to overcome it. We do not seem to challenge what the world tells us. And so one of the biggest things I want to take a moment today and tell people is, do not allow the world to tell you who or what you are. Do not allow them to make you feel uncomfortable because you have something a little different, a little off, something that's not quite what everybody considers normal, because the truth is, there is no true normal. Everyone has a different definition. Everyone has a different understanding. And by allowing the world to define us or tell us who or what we are never able to accomplish the greatness we're meant to have. And for me, like I said, I hid my disorder. I was terrified of what people thought, because the diagnosis of bipolar disorder was something that is very difficult to hear when you're a child. Much less, it's something that does run in families, and I will get into that more later on another video. But for me, it's so important that people realize that just because you have a preconceived notion or understanding does not mean that you need to refrain from speaking out. And I say this because my family, as far as my parents, had a very clear preconceived notion of what it meant with the diagnosis bipolar. And as a result, they spent many years trying to deny I had the disorder. And my own discomfort because of their preconceived notions and their preconceived ideas forced me to remain silent. And as a result, I've done a lot of things that I've had to learn to come to terms with. I acted in ways that I had to really work to forgive myself. And I also had to learn how important it is for me to take a step back and take care of me and not worry what others think. And it's why I say, when you hear a definition or an understanding of a possible diagnosis that you have, do not allow that to become your guiding light or the force that you use to define yourself. Yes, I have bipolar. No, it is not who I am. It's only a part of who I am. And this is something I really had to struggle to learn to understand. But over time, I did find a way to feel more comfortable with it. And now I'm actually very open and able to talk about some of my experiences. And over several videos, you're going to hear a lot of the stuff I've done, because there's things that I don't think people really realize that pertain to the diagnosis, that are signs or symptoms. But doctors don't really want to talk about that. They focus on it's a mood disorder. And that's not the case. It's the same that's true with depression so often. I have many friends who have depression and they're sitting there going, oh, well, it's just depression. And then I hear other friends tell them, oh, just snap out of it. It's okay. You can't snap out of it. That's one thing that pisses me off beyond words. I hate when somebody says just snap out of it, because it's not like you're going, oh, I want to be depressed today, or oh, I want to be manic today. No, it's what you feel, and it's so overwhelming. It's so different from just a normal bout of depression. And I think it's so important that people learn to be comfortable talking about this. We need to find a way to find a voice when we're talking about mental illness. And this isn't just for mental illness. This quote that stuck out, that if you can't tell the world who you are, then the world will tell you who you are. It applies to everything, every aspect of any person's life. You determine who you are. You know what your gifts are. You know what you have that you can bring to the world. But if you don't allow yourself to overcome the world's definition, then you're never going to become what you're meant to be. So that's just something I thought was really important, and it was weighing heavy on my heart after reading that quote. I hope everyone has a great week, and hopefully I can get a little more regular and have another video up by tomorrow. But again, with the remodel, I may be behind. It may take a couple of days here and there. So have an awesome day. Thanks.